Me binging The Voice for literally a week straight nonstop and then sitting down to film this video. I never told y'all I wasn't gonna be a hypocrite. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Unless you're new, then hi, welcome. My name is Jasmine Zade. I'm a music business personage. I make music and pop culture and music industry videos here on my channel. We would love it if you would join us. Or I would. I can't really speak for the rest of my little YouTube family, but I'm sure they would love to have you too, so. Today's video is going to be all about singing competition shows, and I'm so excited to film this video. I had the idea for this video literally months and months ago, and so many of you have been requesting for me to talk about singing competition shows, so here we are today. There's a lot of layers to this, there's a lot that goes on, we're gonna dive into all of it. All I'm gonna say is, if your wildest hopes and dreams lie in reality singing competitions, and you don't want those hopes and dreams to be brutally crushed, I wouldn't watch this video.
And it's everything I expected: bitchiness, competitiveness, ruthlessness. It's fascinating to see.
So human beings are obsessed with two things: celebrity culture and relatability, which is really funny. But since those two things are true, what's better than sitting back, relaxing, and watching someone just like me, TM, blast to stardom after expressing all their hopes and dreams right in front of your face? What? They have a family, they go to school, they work a 9 to 5, they're just like me, but they have this crazy singing talent, and I get to sit back and watch them blast off into celebrity culture right before my very eyes, and thus the singing competition show becomes popular. I think singing reality shows are at this point so deeply ingrained into society, it's crazy. Just like we have food to eat and air to breathe, we have singing reality competition shows. Just for so long, we've had stars being cranked out of these shows, people fighting for their lives to vote for their favorites, and also fighting for their lives to support their favorites, especially in American Idol. Like, if y'all remember the David Archuleta versus David Cook thing that happened, and it was such a huge fighting phenomenon that they did an iCarly episode literally based off of it, where David Archuleta was on the show, which is a really fucked up episode. The judges even being parodied on popular sitcoms and TV shows, people like Simon Cowell literally becoming who they are because of these reality show culture. I just think a world without this culture and without these shows is a huge mystery. These reality competition shows are sort of the all-knowers of entertainment, and they for a long time have taken up a lot of space in the entertainment landscape. The earliest noted version of these reality competition shows came to us in 1948, and it was called the Original Amateur Hour. The Original Amateur Hour was very similar to today's mold of popular reality competition shows. Performers would come in, audition in front of judges, and if you made the cut, you would go on to compete against other people who made the cut.
Where do you live now?
Well, believe it or not, we're all from Brooklyn.
Oh, well. You
We
can't.
went to college in different parts of the country, but happened to meet in New York, and we just started singing.
The finale of the Original Amateur Hour was always held in New York at Madison Square Garden, and the winners of the show were awarded a trophy, which is really interesting because that's not something that people care about anymore, but a trophy, and then also $1,500 as a cash prize, which is another crazy thing to think about, that was like a really, really big lump sum of money and like worthy of being a grand prize, where today's grand prizes are like $1 million recording contracts. So like $1,500 being nothing now is like, money is fake. But there were some pretty big names back in the day. That phrase is so funny to me. There were some pretty big names back in that time who appeared on the Original Amateur Hour, like Gladys Knight. Frank Sinatra performed on the radio version of the show. And even Elvis tried to go on the show and audition, but he didn't even make the cut when he was really young. So like, not only never give up, but also clearly the Original Amateur Hour was a pretty big deal back in its time. The show ran for about 22 years and then was cut in 1970. And then in the 80s, we saw these singing competition shows take on a new mold where the people coming to audition on the show would then be split into different categories. So in the original amateur hour, you would just come on and everyone would just do their thing and it would be a competition. But then in the 80s, the show Star Search started the trend of dividing the acts into categories like male vocalist, female vocalist, comedian, that kind of thing. And Star Search was really popular in the 80s. Again, we saw some pretty big names appear on this talent competition show like Britney Spears, Beyonce, Christina Aguilera, huge women in pop. They all appeared on the show. And just like the original amateur hour, the winners of this show were awarded money, no longer a trophy, which I still think is so funny, but just a cash prize. And the public ate this shit up. The public responded really, really well to these talent competition shows that were coming on TV because, like I said, the public just loves entertainment in general, like watching people who have a talent. But then you throw in the aspect of a competition and make it real, like on the edge of your seat. Is your fave gonna make it? These people are competing against each other for a prize. That makes it even more watch worthy. People love entertainment, but people love a competition too. So you're combining those two things, and the public just reacted very, very well to these two shows. So they kept coming. With the end of a popular reality competition show would always come another one, and they would always sort of evolve into something new or taking an existing mold and adding things onto it to take it further and further. So we were introduced to American Idol in 2002. Which obviously went on to become one of the most popular shows in American history, not even in the reality category, just in general, one of the US's biggest shows ever. Despite being inspired by a British reality show called Pop Idol, American Idol, though, sort of went on and became this face of reality singing competition shows in the early 2000s, especially. And it definitely paved the way for its successors like The X Factor and So You Think You Can Dance, America's Got Talent, The Voice, and of course their respective versions in other countries, because when these shows got popular, they started expanding to different countries. American Idol, though, follows the mold of aspiring singers auditioning in front of a panel of celebrity judges, and then going on to compete in several rounds against other competitors, and then being eliminated via public voting. At the end, the winner of the show would be rewarded with a record deal with a major label. And we've seen some huge stars come off of American Idol, like the first ever winner of the show, Queen of My Heart, Kelly Clarkson. But we've also seen other people compete and come off the show really, really big, like Adam Lambert and Carrie Underwood and Jennifer Hudson. And although the impact of American Idol was literally humongous here in the US and left such a print, like a legacy print on the 2000s, there was other shows that also birthed out really, really, really big stars. We have The X Factor UK, of course, established in 2004, shortly after American Idol by Simon Cowell. That gave the UK itself some huge stars, but also huge stars that went completely international and broke out in so many countries. Like One Direction, Little Mix, Cher Lloyd, Ollie Murs, James Arthur, Leona Lewis, big names in music internationally, but they came off of The X Factor UK. And The X Factor UK was such a big hit and was cranking out such stars that the US tried to do it and tried to replicate it here with Simon. He was a judge. But The X Factor USA ultimately flopped and stopped airing after only 3 seasons, while The X Factor UK has 15. So it didn't work. Probably because the only people watching The X Factor USA were little 14-year-olds like myself who were really obsessed with the stars that already came off of the UK version, like One Direction and Little Mix. And so us little American tweeny babies were like, oh my God, the X Factor's coming here. I want to be a part of it. And literally nobody else was in attendance. So the US version of the X Factor obviously did give us Fifth Harmony, not even arguably the biggest act to come off of the US version of the X Factor. They were the biggest, even though they didn't win the show. And we saw some other people who were really hot for a minute, like B. Miller is doing pretty well in music. She was on the US version of the X Factor. And also Emblem 3, that boy band of brothers. I was really obsessed with them for a while too, because they came off of the X Factor USA, not quite as big as Fifth Harmony, obviously, but there was still some steps. But still, the X Factor USA did not measure up to the success of UK. The X Factor itself, like the entire thing though, did follow a pretty unique mold compared to American Idol, which was obviously its predecessor. Not only did these people have to audition in several rounds and compete in several rounds, but they were also being mentored by these celebrity judges. Like a contestant wins, but also that judge's contestant wins. So the judge is painted out to be like this huge successful person because they were mentoring the person who won. But the other thing that I think worked really well for the X Factor is that they all lived in the X Factor house together, like all the people competing. And the X Factor would put out all these segments. Like they would do like question segments and like funny little like game show segments and like video diary segments. So you really felt a part of these contestants' journey in the house. And that's what helped people like One Direction literally form this like airtight, solid relationship with their fan base because it felt so connected. But basically, in summary, the British pop idol became American Idol. American Idol became a huge hit. The UK said, what the fuck, we want the hype back. Created the X Factor UK, gave us some huge stars, and then boom, Hospital Lights, 2011, The Voice is born into the singing competition family. Except we are not like the other girls, says The Voice. We're different, we're new, we're fresh, exciting, we're inclusive. We don't pick our talent based off of how you look. No, these judges can't see you when you're performing, and then if they like what they hear, they press a button and can turn around and see what you look like. This is about inclusivity. This is The Voice. Except not really. But we'll get into that in a different section of this video. But people eat it up. These shows always win awards and have high ratings and viewer counts, and people still love them. So with these core shows, The X Factor, American Idol, The Voice, successful, yes, but at what cost? What's the real motive here? What's really going on? What is the reason for all of these questionable things? Why are people not coming off of these shows famous? What's keeping them on air? What does this pipeline to fame actually do to people? Is this pipeline to fame actually worth it? I'll speak on it. Let's talk about that, aka the real point of this video. So just in case we aren't on the same page here for some reason, I just want to start this off by saying singing competition shows are fake. They're not real. Not a single part of these shows are real. These shows are so manufactured and strategic and carefully planned. It's crazy. These are truly story shows. They're story shows, not reality shows. These singing competition shows are like scripted TV shows about a reality show. If that makes sense, it probably doesn't. It's just genuinely insane. So for this part of the video, I want to walk you through the process of being on a show or like creating like the process of the competition, but essentially while exploring the fabrication of it and how literally every step of these shows are so entirely fake. So first of all, let's start with the audition process, the beginning of it all. These core shows that we're talking about, The X Factor, The Voice, and especially American Idol on this part, have it in common that they make it look like there's this massive group of people coming to these open call auditions with these big hopes and dreams to become stars. And these are what we call cattle calls, which is basically just an open audition like you see on TV where these big groups of people come and they get numbers and they sign in and whatever. Are these cattle calls that you see on TV of people talking to their families and chattering in the crowd real? Yes and no, but mostly no. In a lot of cases, the really talented singers that you see appearing on these shows, coming up to the camera and doing these interviews, making it look like they came to an open call, were actually called by a talent scout or a producer and invited to come and be on the show.
She was a talent scout for X Factor, and well, I didn't even know that was a thing. I always was under the impression that you show up to the huge cattle call that you see on TV where there's like thousands of people in this big arena and they travel all over the world and that's how you get found. But guess what? That's not how it works.
A lot of people who make music online, like YouTube or post Instagram covers, whatever, they'll get calls from these different TV shows and talent scouts, whatever. and literally be invited to come and be on the show, but they frame it to look like this person heard about the show and came to an open call, which is what I was kind of saying earlier about how these shows are like scripted shows about a reality show. Like these talent scouts are literally calling people and being like, hey, we're filming this show, come be a part of the cast, it's going to be a reality show. Or in some cases, these like singers aren't like contacted by the show, but they will have people contact the show for them. If you have already existing connections, like a manager or some kind of agent or something, they are the ones who can call in and help you get on the show, but still make it look like it was an open call thing. As for the part of this where I said that some of it is real, because I said yes and no, mostly no, the yes part comes from, yes, they do have these cattle calls sometimes, where yes, obviously they do, because you see these massive groups of people outside. They really do hold these cattle calls, but only to find people that they can make a joke out of and that they can make a mockery out of and humiliate on TV. So they hold these cattle calls in hopes to find that one person who comes in and they're terrible and they look like a joke, because that makes for great TV. Or even like on The Voice, they need people to go who aren't going to make it on the show. Obviously, every single time someone comes to a blind audition, they don't get the judges to turn around. There's some segments on The Voice where the person comes on and they're not good enough and the judges don't turn. They need to look for people like that as well. So that is what the real cattle call is for. There was this woman who auditioned for the X Factor. Her name is Zoe Alexander. We're going to be talking about her a little bit more in depth later in this video. But she did a video, and in one part of it, she explained that the X Factor is like completely predetermined. Like they already scout out these talented people that they want to sign, and they bring them in to be on the show to make it look like they're these hopeful people who want to go on, when they already know that they're going to win or that they're going to be really successful. But they still have people come and wait outside of the like studio to film them and make it look like they're doing cattle calls.
And they took us outside to the audience queue, the people who were going to go and watch the show. They stood us in the audience queue, pretending that we were queuing to go and audition.
Viewers are led to believe that the X Factor contestants queue outside the venue to audition in the hope of impressing the judges. This is simply not true. The 10 or so contestants are pre-selected by Psycho, Thames TV and Sony, and are in fact already backstage in the arena.
Which is so almost funny. Like you have all these people come and wait outside and film them cheering like that to make it look like you have all these hopeful auditioners. Like it's giving desperate. Like I think that's but yeah, those video reels that people have always been so obsessed with, where it's like the top 10 worst auditions at the X Factor, the top 10 funniest American Idol fails, those kind of things, so popular. Everyone has watched them. Everyone thinks they're hilarious. It's, like I said, its own culture. But that's exactly why these shows need these big cattle calls, so they can find people to embarrass or people who are just like not good, so that people will watch the show and think it's funny and bring that like entertainment factor. And sometimes these people don't show up that way, but they sabotage them into looking like that. And this is where Zoe Alexander fully comes into play, that woman I was just talking about, who revealed a lot about the truth of what goes on at the X Factor in a bunch of her YouTube videos that I will definitely have linked down below. So I definitely recommend going and watching her like telling of the story of what happened to her when she went to audition. But in summary, like in a very short condensed version, she looked like Pink. They had her arrive to her audition ridiculously early for literally no reason. She was the only one there. She didn't do anything. She just sat in a room with no food and water really, really early and sat there all day rotting away to kind of bring her energy down. And then when they were doing her pre-show interviews, they would not stop talking to her about Pink. Literally every single question they would ask this woman was about Pink. And they did this to her for literally hours just to take maybe 10 seconds of that pre-interview footage and use her talking about Pink, when she did not come to the show with the intention of singing Pink. The producers of the show, when they were emailing her about her audition, made her sing a Pink song. So they made her sing this Pink song. She went on and did it. All of these people who worked at the X Factor were in on it. The judges were like, we didn't like that, sing another song. She did a backup song, but they sabotaged the audio so she couldn't sing really well. So the judges were like, what the fuck, you need to be yourself, like this is not good, gave her a no. And the girl basically had a meltdown. You know, they held her in this building all day, tormented her all day with all this pink stuff to edit it and make her look like she wanted to be pink when she didn't, and set her up for embarrassment and failure. And she was like crying. And now to this day, that video gets reposted and talked about a lot, of her having this like meltdown and them framing her to be this crazy, insane, like person trying to be pink when they edited it all and set it all up. After hearing her story, watching the actual audition is really difficult. But that's just what I mean about these TV shows. They're all about entertainment and views and money and nothing else. So they're essentially scouting out these super talented people and then using everyone else as their personal punching bag because they want the views and the ratings and the discussion and the news that brings them in their money. And it's also a whole process to even make it onto TV. When these shows edit their episodes, they make it really look like these people just come to this open call audition and they get their number and they go on stage in front of the judges on TV and sing and they make it or they don't. And that's not true. I watched so many videos about people's personal experiences auditioning for these shows, and so many of these people revealed that you have to go through like several rounds before you can even make it onto TV. The people who appear on the show, like on camera on TV, are so carefully picked and crafted. It's crazy. You have to keep auditioning and keep auditioning, make it to this round and then make it to this round and then sign this, and then you can be on TV if they decide that they need you for something very specific. And when I say that this shit is so crafted, I mean crafted. They'll trigger people's meltdowns on purpose, like they did to Zoe Alexander. And they also set people up for failure. Like they'll have someone come off of a cattle call who's not really that good, but then the people giving them their pre-show interviews and stuff will hype them up into thinking they're so good. The judges are gonna love you. America's gonna love you. You're such a talent, blah, blah, blah. So then that's why you see people who are terrible audition in front of the camera, but they come off really confident and cocky.
And they basically were trying to set up scenarios where I had this interview with this other girl who, she wasn't good. Yeah, she wasn't good, but she was really confident. So what they were trying to do was make me seem like a not very confident kid and I was gonna go out and do really good, and she was a really confident girl and she was gonna go out and tank. So that's how they were trying to set up the TV show. Remember, this is all a TV show.
I know some people are gonna think that sounds not that bad, but it's genuinely cruel to me. Like, that's so horrible how you manipulate these people into these different things for good TV. And yeah, some people obviously nowadays do go on the show and behave like that on purpose. Some people really are like that, like they go on the show and they act outrageous because they want the exposure. Obviously, if you go to a cattle call and you act crazy, they're gonna want you for TV. So yes, some people do it for the exposure, but some people are so genuine. But anyways, back on track. Speaking of like pre-show interviews, they always have these like pre-show clips on the show where these people are being interviewed and they're like, you know, when they're with their families and they're like, why are you here? Are you nervous? Blah, 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 that kind of thing. Also totally staged, which I feel like I don't even need to say, because sometimes when you watch these segments, it seems so scripted and fake that you're like, that it's like uncomfortable almost.
Clips of your family screaming at the TV screen saying like, oh my god, hit the buzzer, turn around, is filmed completely separately. They give them lines, ask them to say it. Also, the clips of your family talking to you beforehand is completely staged, all filmed, all lighting, all makeup. They told my mom what to say, which was completely not her style. They made her say all this stuff about like, oh, did you forget your socks or your toothbrush? And they were like, can we do another take? Can we do another take?
And the reason they do these things is because on these competition shows, everyone is a story. Every single person has to be some kind of story, unless they're the ones from the cattle calls being turned into a joke. And I definitely noticed this during my week-long recent, like, The Voice binge. I literally remember sitting there and having this moment where I was like, why does every single person who comes on to blind audition have some kind of story that they make super emotional and dramatic no matter what it is? Like, and they range so far. Like, some of them will be like, oh, I was bullied in school. But then some of them will be like, my mom died, my dad had stage 4 cancer, and I am doing absolutely horribly terrible, depressed in bed every day. They get so deeply personal about it too. Like, they treat the camera like their therapist. They're just sitting there going all in. There's a sad music. They do these like weird B-rolls of the person like walking down the street with their hands in their pockets. It's a singing show. What is going on? They need to cover every single base possible to draw in viewers, and they're gonna do that via sympathy, relatability. So here we have this poor, hurt, damaged soul with nothing left in life. This is so sad. I have nothing but my hopes and dreams to be a singer. Oh my god, I feel so bad for them. I'm rooting for you. because all you have left is your hopes and dreams, and I can support you. Which is already not good on its own because you're using these people's stories to draw in like your views. But it's even worse when you realize that these shows don't give a single flying fuck about their contestants. They do not care about these people. They don't care about your hopes and dreams. They don't care about making you a star. They care about the Benjis. They care about making their Benjamin Franklins. And these stories are usually not even fully focused on the contestants. They focus so much on the judges. They're like, oh my God, look at Simon. He feels so bad and so sympathetic for this poor girl who lost a beloved family member. Look at Simon being sympathetic. Let's exaggerate his sympathy and take the spotlight way away from the person actually suffering and put it on Simon, the judge on our show, who feels bad for this person.
I lost my best friend a couple of years ago. And I kind of interpret the lyrics in a completely different way.
He is a true hero. He's gonna make this person with problems worthy. Oh my God, what nice people. Look at what this show does for people. I'm gonna watch. They have my support. And meanwhile, the show is like, yes, yes, cry, tears, yes, money, 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 money. They're like cartoons with money signs in their eyes. They are Mr. Krabs. And it makes me wonder, like, what they say to these people when they scout them out to be on the show. They're like, okay, welcome to The Voice. What tragic thing do you have to share with us? And before you argue with me on this, saying, well, they agreed to it, they're the ones who sat down and said it to the camera, hang on. Let me offer you this. Let's talk about contracts. The other crazy thing about these shows is that, yes, you have to sign contracts before you can even become a competitor on the show. Competitor, that's so funny, like they're fighting to the death. And I say it's crazy because it's like before you can even come and be a part of the show, they put this huge stack of papers in your face that's very lengthy, wordy, hard to understand, and you just have to sign it. I always recommend these videos by a YouTuber named Maddie, who basically reads competition show contracts a lot. And when he is doing those videos, he says that it takes him like weeks to dig through the contract and fully actually understand what it's saying. So imagine being these reality show contestants and being given this contract in this little window of time to really understand what you're signing, especially when the contents of the contract are so insane, which is what we're going to go over in this section of the video. And all of these shows have very, very similar terms in their contracts. So I'm just going to kind of go over some of them that they all like have in common. But before I do that, I do just want to take a moment to thank the brave souls who breached their contracts in secrecy so that us mere normal internet people can read and understand them, because you are not supposed to share these contracts, but sometimes people do it anyway, but undercover so they can't get sued, and I just think that's beautiful. But the first thing I found that these singing competition shows have in common is that after you sign these lengthy, insane contracts, the terms of the contracts still stand even when you're not on the show anymore or are turned down from the show. Like, these things that you're agreeing to are literally set in stone. It doesn't matter if you get eliminated or you don't go on the show anymore, your time is over. Like, the stuff that they wrote into these contracts still stands. Another thing these contracts typically have in common is that you're not allowed to discuss the contracts. Like I said, very strict contract rule. You cannot talk about what's in your contract, and you also typically cannot talk about what goes on at the show or the people on the show at all. The Voices contract specifically says that if you do breach the contract in this way and discuss the contract or the show, you can get fined for $500,000 plus. $500,000 or more for talking about the contract. They really don't want you to talk about the contract. I'm so glad I didn't sign it. And the X Factor contract specifically says that you're not allowed to talk about the contract in the show, but also that you're specifically not allowed to say anything negative about it or Simon himself. Isn't that shady as hell? Imagine you are about to be a part of this project, but they're like, hey, by the way, you're not allowed to reveal anything negative about us or say anything remotely bad about the creator of this project you're about to do, or you'll get in serious trouble. That's so shady. Like, that must mean that there is something negative about your show that you don't want the public to know. These contracts also state that anything that they film of you or that is sourced by you, they're allowed to use for anything in whatever way they want, which this is usually the craziest, most I own you kind of part about these contracts because they literally own you. This part of the contract is basically saying anything that you post of yourself, anything you post in general, a tweet, a photo, a video, any video they take of you anywhere at any time, they can use however they want. They can edit you into an awful person. They can lie about you via editing and manipulation, and you cannot do anything about it because you signed this contract. And remember earlier when I said these terms still stand even when you're eliminated? So you could literally not even be on the show anymore or not make it, and they can still use videos and footage and things that you put out in whatever way they want because you signed the contract. The very wordy, lengthy contract that's very hard to understand, and they phrase it in ways that don't make it look like they own you. I also wanted to mention a part of the X Factor contract specifically too. In the contract, it says that you're required to be on the show throughout your time with zero pay, but then after that continue to positively promote it for months. So in all, this show makes millions off of whatever narrative they edit you into, whatever they want you to look like. And then you have to promote them and say nice things about them for months with no compensation, and also under the requirement that you can't say anything negative about the show or Simon ever. And then you wonder why huge stars that came off of the X Factor never name drop Simon specifically. They never say anything negative about him explicitly. Like, sometimes they do very like shadily or passively, like subliminally, like cryptically, but they never explicitly say negative things about Simon. They always worm around mentioning him. Usually when they're talking about mistreatment, they say like their management, but they don't talk about Simon, and they don't talk about the X Factor. And America's Got Talent and Britain's Got Talent are the same way, by the way, obviously because of Simon's involvement. Their contracts are exactly the same and very gross. I kind of talked about that video by Maddie. The Britain's Got Talent contract is disgusting. The reason I'm not really talking about AGT and BGT in this video is because I'm kind of touching on singing competitions specifically and not talent competitions like that. Once again, by the way, I'm going to have a lot of this stuff linked down below if you want to explore a little bit of that too. But overall, this contract stuff is just what I mean when I say you can't look at these contestants and be like, oh, well, that's what you were there for. Because it's truly not fair to just pass it off like that. But it's like, before you know it, these people own you. They can spin you into whatever they want. They can give you whatever image they want. And it's so strategic in a way that makes it feel like they're not doing these things and like you did it yourself. Like the questions that they ask you in your interviews, they get to ask you the pre-show interview questions to film your reactions. So if they're trying to spin you a certain way, they're going to strategically ask questions that get responses and like an angle out of you that they can edit into what they want. Like with Zoe Alexander, they wanted her to look like the crazy pink girl. So they only asked her questions about pink in her pre-show interview. But yeah, they also egg people on for tears on purpose, like give these suggestions and like feeding lines subtly to family members to get what they want. They even edit audience reactions, which is something that I never really thought about, like obviously, but I never really thought about that until I started watching all these videos and doing research about these singing competition shows. These people who go on an audition always say that the audience reactions are very different on TV. It's the audience, you know, like they could use an audience reaction from anything. Like if the audience is like, this is terrible, and make it look like that's what they think. Or if like a judge is speaking and saying something about a contestant that the audience doesn't agree with, like if a judge is being horrible, they can edit the audience to make it look like the audience agrees with these horrible things the judges are saying, just by throwing in some clips of like the audience like cheering and clapping like they agree when they really don't. Moving on to the actual show though, that's all the fakeness of the pre-show stuff. But then you have the actual competition where you have these talented singers, they scouted, whatever, and the show is moving and grooving. Great. A lot of the times, most of these shows know exactly who they want in the spotlight really early on, super predetermined. They're like, okay, we really love this person, or we really love this person's marketability, whatever. We want them to be America's favorite. So they can strategically do things so that they get what they want while making it look like the country is getting what they want. Like there could be someone on the show who's insanely talented, like clearly way more talented than some other person, but the show doesn't want this talented person to be America's favorite. So even though they're so good, they make the judges like criticize them. Like the judges will be like, "Oh, good, but you're a bad person. You're egotistical. We don't like you." So then that influences the public to be like, "Oh yeah, they're an asshole. I don't care that they're talented. We are not going to vote for them." So even if that one lady that's homegrown with kidney failure is not that talented, she's a homegrown lady with kidney failure. They want America to love her because that brings in the views and the sympathy and the, oh my God, this show is so charitable. Especially because it's TV above everything else. It's entertainment above everything else. It was just never supposed to be about these contestants genuinely and making their dreams come true. But the money thing doesn't even just like revolve around all this premeditated, like fake stuff. They also do that thing for money where they favor marketability over talent, which I touch on so much on this channel. I know you're yawning, you're tired of it, we get it, marketability, blah blah blah, but it's true and it applies here like very much so. So they're like, you're not as talented vocally as that guy over there, but you look good in skinny jeans and girls will fawn over you, so I want you. I want to put all my money into you because you're marketable. I don't care that you can't really sing as good as that guy because you look good. Which is exactly where The Voice comes in and like tries to capitalize off of being different and not doing that like other shows. Like their entire brand is, we're not like other shows. We pick people based off of talent. It's not about the looks. It's not about the marketability. We're a real and inclusive talent competition. Watch us. Which, like, no, it's all still fake. So, like, what's the point in the first place? They still call people and specifically scout them out to be on the show and predetermine that they want this person to be the star. They still do that. And also, the thing about The Voice is that they were literally exposed for training their contestants before their blind audition. There's an article by Suggest that talked about this, and they said, while it may appear otherwise, contestants do not simply show up for the blind auditions and hope for the best. The people who compete on the show are recruited by the show's producers and must go through professional training before making their first appearance in front of the camera. This training is intensive and includes more than vocal coaching. In an interview with Cosmopolitan, season 6 contestant Kat Perkins revealed, "We also had social media and interview training by professionals who were brought in by The Voice to teach us skills for living our lives out loud on social media, radio, print, and red carpet platforms." So it's crazy. They literally get scouted out and then trained for months, and then they go on the show. And then they make it look like, oh, I responded to this open call and came in and just went on stage. And they also still spin these really deeply personal, emotional, montagey stories on people so that you'll feel bad for them. But so the show looks good because The Voice is branding themselves as this all-inclusive grantor of dreams. And it's like the whole point of the blind auditions is like, okay, like we can't see you and we're picking you based off your voice, even though you were scouted and trained to be here. But then after the initial blind audition, then the judges fully have the capability to judge people based off of how they look and how marketable they are. Not just the judges, but the show too. And I also was reading about like what goes on at The Voice, and it like the show fully styles and dresses these contestants for every single appearance they have after the blind audition. So it's like, I see the vision of The Voice. I see what they were going for, but no. Like, it's still so incredibly fake and crafted and not what it prides itself on being. And I think that's what makes The Voice even worse. When it's supposed to be better than these other reality shows and it's supposed to like stand out and be different, I think that brand makes it even worse because they're trying to push that they're so inclusive and careful and real when they are absolutely not. But that brand is what makes them get even more glory. I think the only part of The Voice that's like decently truthful is the coaches. A lot of people, when they asked me to do the singing competition video, were asking about if the mentoring and the coaches is real. And as far as what I found, yes, The Voice coaches actually do form close relationships with their contestants. The contestants like get to call and FaceTime and text them and work on their songs with them and get mentoring from them. But when I say decently true, it's because The Voice doesn't tell you that these contestants are also getting very intensive, extensive training from other people too. Like the show edits it to make it look like these celebrity judges are doing all this work on their own when they're not. There's all these vocal coaches and trainers and producers and all kinds of managers and people constantly working with these people on set and off set. Like The Voice becomes your whole life and you're constantly working with a bunch of people to be the best that you can, not just your celebrity mentor, which would be fine. Like that's not a bad thing to have all this help. But the part is that it's kind of deceitful because the show spins it to make it look like Blake Shelton is doing all of this work when there's other people who are helping. So even the truth is a half truth. Plus, after you're eliminated from the show, you're immediately cut off from your celebrity mentor. The second you get eliminated, you're essentially ghosted by them. You are no longer allowed access to texting them and calling them and working with them at all. You're kind of just thrown into the world, unless I guess they decide they want to sign you or something. But I think all of this stuff together is just really making me truly wonder if this pipeline to fame is even worth it. And that's just because I feel like not a lot of people make it off of these shows. Like, it's a very select few people who have actually gone really, really big in the past like 2 decades from shows like this. Just a handful of people who have actually did something with it. And then the rest of the people kind of go unheard of, you know what I mean? So it's making me wonder if it's even worth it to go through all of this stuff, because these experiences are so grueling. And plus, you're like leaving your life behind. I know American Idol pays contestants at a certain point to be on the show, but a lot of the other shows don't. And you literally have to leave work and your family and your life to be on this show for however long and then get eliminated and just be thrown back out there without the money that you were making while you were on the show. That's crazy. That's so crazy. Just to get nothing from them while they used you for their views and for the network, and then they don't give anything back to you. I think that's absolutely crazy. But I just feel like it's not worth it unless you are just absolutely desperate for the exposure, because like I said, sometimes you go on these shows and you can end up making something of yourself later just because, you know, at least you were seen. It's just such an interesting pipeline to fame in like the worst way possible. I keep saying pipeline to fame, but no wonder this pipeline to fame is so outdated now. Nobody is getting famous this way anymore. People are now just like relying on social media really heavily. Everything is so digital, and this sort of culture of singing reality competition shows is dying. She is literally laying in the street, like convulsing, like she is going to pass away, which might be a good thing. I don't even know if she really is going to pass away, but it might be a good thing if we put these singing reality competition shows to rest once and for all, because literally nobody is becoming big off of these shows in the past few years, but also it's just become such a joke. Like, the culture of these shows is literally a joke. Everyone knows they're fake. People like to just watch the outrageous edits that they spin of these crazy cattle call people. They're just like playing simulator now. They're like playing reality show simulator. So they're just making all this money off of a false reality. Who? And it's like, off of who? How are these shows still making money? I'm wondering. Well, The Voice has Ariana Grande. That was smart. You see what I'm saying? They do shit like that, and then it makes sense. We're dying. We're in the street dying. Oh, we're gonna put Ari on here, and now they're making more money than ever. That's how you fix a dying culture. You add something new. But yeah, that's my video on singing competition shows, also known as me literally disappointedly screaming at my camera for like 30 minutes straight. You guys really wanted this one, so I hope you liked it. Let me know if you did. Don't forget to check out my description for my social medias. Keep up with what I'm doing in the meantime. I hope you're all ready for the holidays and that you do have a happy holiday if you celebrate. I hope you're doing absolutely amazing, drinking your water, thriving, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video.